Hey everyone, and nice to see you all this Thursday. How do you feel out there today? Are you doing well? I hope so. I'm back in my studio again. It's been a couple of weeks since I've been in the studio space, well, for a live. I have been in my studio space, but it's just been too noisy to actually record here. But this is the first time in several weeks that I've been able to do my recording in here. Now, you can't see on the other side here, but they're still working a little bit outside, but fingers crossed. I think they're going to be quiet enough that we should be good for the duration of the recording. And almost as if to test the waterproofness of all of the new front cladding and front section here, we had torrential wind and rain this weekend. So when I came in after a couple of days away, because it was a bank holiday Monday or an extended weekend, I was half eyes closed walking up the stairs, waiting to see if there was going to be a puddle in my bucket in the corner, because there was one particular spot that in heavy rains had been leaking since I moved in, but it has stopped. So I don't know if it was a fluke or if what they've done is worked. So it's great. So I'm delighted that that I'm leak free now. They're still finishing off plastering the outside, and what that means as well is it's almost like I've got this little opaque view coming through the windows, because they're so dirty on the outside. Hey Chantal from Ontario, thanks for joining in. But yeah, it does. Oh, and right now I've actually got somebody who's just on a hoist directly outside my window. So I feel a little bit like I'm standing in a fishbowl, but we'll be okay. You can learn a little bit about knitting in the club as well as we go along. So I had, over the last couple of days, I've had a few questions that people would like to have answered in the live, and I wrote them down, so hopefully I'll remember them all. One of the first that I thought I'd address at the start, that anyone it was in relation to the Celtic Knits Club. Now, anyone who is a club member will know that I sent an email out today with a little bit of updates. So I'll just kind of give you an overview again if you haven't opened the email or whatever, it didn't come to you. Or basically, the club, as you know, had been somewhat delayed because of the fact that the mill had one of their twisting machines broke down. And then combined with the fact that getting some of the yarn in as well with Brexit and custom delays, there was just a little bit of delays. So it meant that shipping the club was delayed by a couple of weeks. And there's I have everything in now, and most of them, tomorrow we should be finishing off all of the classic neutral colors and also the contrast color clubs, because we have enough for all of those to go out. I've only got a small bit of one of the blues, so there'll be a handful of the blues will go out tomorrow evening or Monday morning, and then the rest of them, it should be about another week that I should be getting it. Now, if you're in the club as well, you might have gotten a notification with a tracking number that didn't seem to connect, and that's because with my new online system, when I go in and print my shipping labels, it automatically sends a fulfillment back saying that an item was shipped. Absolutely wonderful most of the time. When you're doing a club, it's a little tricky, particularly when you run into problems, because I was printing out shipping labels to be able to help the person who was organized and have everything ready. And then when we started running into problems, I ended up with shipping labels that were printed, but obviously didn't connect to anything that was going to work yet. It will. Anyone who's gotten a tracking number that doesn't seem to be connecting to anything yet, it will work. It just may be somewhat delayed. And also what I'm discovering is with some of the bulk mail in Ireland, like when it's actually been collected in sacks, it's not always being scanned initially, that often it's a couple of steps down the road that it's scanned. So even though I've handed it in, nothing's showing up in the system yet. So sometimes it can be a couple of days, even when it's gone out of my hands before it's showing up. So my apologies if that's the case, but don't panic. It's all there, got tracks, everything's tracked and it's going along. So we will be good. And basically in a couple of weeks, they'll all be out. Well, it should be less than that. Within 10 days, I think, assuming there's no further delays with the mill and they're able to get them out when they expect, should be all out. And what that means is we're on track for the 29th of May to do the pattern release and hopefully have a little bit of a Zoom chat with people. And this time, Chris from Suds Johnson, we've in the packages that are coming, there's something special that he made for you. And he said he might come on and chat with us about the process. So if there's anything you'd like to know about the process of what he makes or does, just let me know and I can pass the question on to him. So that should be a lot of fun. It's kind of nice to have one of the makers come in and chat with you as well, so that you get a sense of what goes on behind the scenes, and you very clearly know that these are all handmade, and it's a person making them, not just a brand, if you know what I mean. So that's my club update. And also, before I went on to a few of the other questions, I thought I'd show you what I'm working on now. This won't be released until the autumn, but I've just been enjoying the colour so much, I thought I'd share it with you. It's not blocked or anything yet. Here, I'll lift her up. This is a sweater I'm working on in Blosta, and you can see it's the marled colorway. And it's anyone, I'm curious, does anyone recognize the stitch patterns? We have the middle here, it's blackberry. Then there's some of the faux cable, and then the side there is the ladder stitch. And that is all the stitches that were in the Durica hat pattern, which was the first one from the Celtic Knits Club. I really, really liked the way the pattern stitches work together, so I basically expanded the whole thing out and decided to make a sweater version of it. So it's a fairly boxy top-down sweater. This one is on the slightly more crop side, but I'm going to put an option in for a longer version and kind of explain how much extra yarn you'll need depending on the extra length you want to put onto it. Should be, like I said, it should be August, September, that should be coming out. Let me pull it up. This is the yarn here. This is Quilta Ore. So Quilta is wood, or the greeny one, and Ore is gold, or the mustard. And so the two of those together, very often with marls, it's hard to picture what they look like knit up. But you can see how, I think that, like the two different ones here, this in pattern stitches, it really kind of blends the whole thing in. It's a little less blended in stockinette stitch, but still really pretty. Like this could also be knit obviously in a solid color. But I do feel like the marl somehow gives a little bit more depth to the whole thing. And just makes me very happy, because I've been wanting to knit with this color for a while. Originally, I was going to go and do something with stripes, like start off with the Ore, then go to the two together, and then go to the Quilta. And it just ended up morphing into this and being just the one color to just experiment with it. And it's actually one thing that I've been enjoying a little bit with design lately, is being able to really jump into stitch patterns or into different design items. So like with that, where I was playing with the Blosta yarn, but with these different stitch patterns together in the hat and the Durica, and that ended up almost becoming the starting point or position for almost swatching and going, what would this look like if it's expanded into a much bigger item like a sweater, and how do you get all of those to play together so that it fits, but that you're still being able to take into account all of the different gauges. The weight of that wool, it's a kind of a heavy DK. If you're in the US, it's probably closer to a worsted weight in the US. So I've used for this, it's a 4mm needle, and I get about 19 stitches per 4 inches, or 10 centimeters. I'm glad you like it. I'm looking forward to releasing it. I actually think that might also be a nice one for a men's sweater. It feels that it's because it's a square cut, and the stitch pattern I think will probably translate to both, as well as having different length options. I'm going to have different cuff options. I'll have a ribbed option or a garter option, and the same with the neck, because if you like the more slightly open neck the way it is there, I'll just show how to do an I-cord edging. Or because I wanted to wear this in winter, I think I might actually do a slightly tighter 2x2 rib to pull it in a little bit. And actually that leads me on. Jitbug, it looks like you were asking a question, but I'm not sure what it is. You can pop it up there again if you wanted to ask, because I couldn't quite see. that leads me on to one of the questions that was submitted. People were asking what you do about a V-neck that is too open. And a little bit like what I was talking about with the different neck options, usually the best way of dealing with that is changing the edging you put on or how you put on the edging. So if you've got a V-neck and it's a little bit too open and there's already an edging on it, you might either want to undo the bind off and keep going with the edging a bit further, or if there's no edging, then you want to go add an edging. The kind of things you can do then to kind of pull it in are, first of all, if you go and use a smaller needle size, it's automatically going to start pulling it in. With a V-neck, you're going to have, it comes down to this point, so the more you decrease as you go, the more edging you put, the more you want to make sure you decrease. You'll put a decrease, a central double decrease or 2 sideway decreases down at the very bottom as you're coming in. And you could, if you wanted to, on each side of the back of the neck, every other round, do decreases as well. And so what that's going to do is what you're doing is you're filling in the opening of the neck as much as you want. So smaller needle size, work a little bit more decreases. If you don't really want to have a very wide edging, but you still want it pulled in, then what works very well is picking up stitches, again, the smaller needle size, and doing something like an I-cord edging, but doing it really tightly, because it'll stabilize it and it pulls it in, it'll stop it stretching out. So depending on the garment you're talking about or the end effects you want to do, they're both going to work. So that's generally what I would do. And I have done it before, in fact, when I was doing the Stash Dive Knit Along. You can find that either on the Teachable course or on YouTube. But I was going through different basics with it. And when I was doing my own one, as I was working from the top down, my gauge was wider than the swatch. And so my neck opening ended up quite a lot bigger. And so I, in fact, went through and did a couple of those, did quite a bit of edging to pull that in a little bit and make it less of an opening, because if there's less open work, it's going to be less of an opening. And finish off as well with a slightly tighter bind off so that it's not as likely to stretch out again. So there are a few tips that you can kind of start trying as well. Now, the second question that I got asked, or I should say third, because there was the Celtic Knits Club was the other one, was did I have any suggestions for garments for an adventurous beginner? And I do. It's actually why I'm wearing this one here. This is Barack, B-R-E-A-C. And if you are fairly new to knitting, but you'd love to do a garment, this one is a great way of doing it, because it's top down in one piece and it's super, super chunky. And you see here, very, very big stitches, so it works up really quickly. And the only finishing you have to do is just picking up stitches to work around the edge. If you've got enough, is the new pattern to be released? Yes, well, the one over here, if that's the one you're talking about, it is to be released, but it's going to be released in autumn, because it's not going to be, I'm still just working on the sample. So I just gave you a little preview, and particularly to show people how to work with marls and things. And so the sweater I'm wearing is Barack, and it's top down, and you can either do it as a full class and teachable if you're very new and you'd really like the support of having a guided workshop and videos. Then it's like my first cardigan is where you'll find it under. If you think you know most of the techniques and you just want a fairly straightforward pattern to follow, then the pattern is available by itself as well on the website, and there's yarn kits as well if you want to try it. So this is one that I'd suggest. And over here, if I could pull this in, this is Daykite. I might pull it back here. So Daykite it's a slightly finer gauge because it's done in newer worsted. And let me turn this over here. Kim, I'm actually going to have it. This is all going to be saved and it'll go up on the grid afterwards. So don't worry if you've missed something. You can come back in and all of the questions will still be answered. It won't disappear anywhere. It's just answered first in live. So this is the second one. That would again be for an adventurous beginner for a garment. Cardigan again. I'm more inclined, I think, for beginners to work with cardigans. I think for one reason, you've got a little bit more leeway in terms of sizing. So if it's a little too tight or too loose,
you can still, you can either work more or less edging, or you can, you know, if it's a little too snug, you can wear it open or put more, bigger edging in the front, or vice versa. If it's a little big, you can do less edging. So you've just got a little bit more ability to play around with it. This is almost like two cardigans, because this is what it looks like closed. Now I've got another cardigan. I've got the laminaris underneath it, so I'm double layering my lady here. So when it's open, it becomes a waterfall front on it. But it's all done again in one piece, with the front of it being a garter stitch. You start up there at the collar, and then you work all the way down and remove your sleeves again here. And that's newer worsted, or alternatively Studio Donegal, soft Donegal is another good option if you prefer 100% merino for it. But both of those will work very well. And just like the Barak one, if you feel you've got all the techniques already and you just want the pattern, then the pattern is available. So just Dacite or Dacite, D-A-C-I-T-E. Or if you want a guided workshop, the cardigan is also up on Teachable. So they would be, for an adventurous beginner, would be the two starting spots I'd probably suggest, because there's more options for support and for help. And I think that the technique, and also the techniques, are totally covered in each of them. So if there's something new to you, you'll find all of the information or videos on the technique. Now I did have another question as well. Someone was asking me about Blosta Light. So the Blosta Light is the single ply lightweight version of the Blosta yarn, which is a twisted 2-ply. She was asking if it was soft enough next to the skin for making something like a summer sweater or something like that. That is always going to be a loaded question, because there's huge variations in terms of people's sensitivities of wool. While for Irish wool, this is relatively soft, it's still probably closer to if you've used like Shetland wools and things like that. So not merino wool soft for sure. So if you've got any sensitivity and you're planning on wearing this with nothing underneath, I suspect you're not going to find it pleasant. If you can handle most wools and you don't find them uncomfortable, or you're going to wear something with a layer underneath, then there's no problem. So for the most part, my general feeling is probably not super soft next to the skin with absolutely nothing there. That's just my feeling, but I can wear it in certain places. I'm a little bit strange. I don't mind things on my arm and stuff like that. My neck is very sensitive, so I have to be careful. If it's a lower cut one, I can do it. So yeah, I'm definitely a little strange. Oh, you're welcome for showing you the two here. So in case anyone's wondering, this is the grey Leah and this is the Or. So I think that's most of the update that you guys were looking for. So if there's any other questions that you guys would like answered, just pop them up there. If I don't get a chance to answer them before we finish up here, I will just send you on a message afterwards, because this is going to be posted afterwards to IGTV. So if you missed a section or you came in a little bit further along, and please keep popping up questions for other weeks. We'll put something up next week, because it's particularly fun doing lives when I've got active questions to answer, because I guess I get to go into teacher mode, right? Whereas otherwise it's just an update. But it's nice to have a mixture of an update and kind of a few suggestions for modifications, or showing you patterns or yarns or combos that you'd like to see in person and things like that. So thank you for joining me, everyone, and I will see you next week, same time. Bye.